Hello, GM, everyone. Welcome to the workshop. This workshop is all about building chain abstracted dApps using Okto SDK. So, starting with the workshop, a little bit about me. My name is Sparsh. I am from the engineering team at Okto, and I work in the SDK dev team. Now, what is Okto SDK? Well, I like to put it as a one-stop and simple-to-use software kit which helps you build great dApps without even thinking about a lot of complex Web3 problems. Like, you can also visualize it as a simple chain abstracted embedded wallet. But before we start, I have a question for you all. Like, why would you use a chain abstracted embedded wallet in your project? And I hope by the end of this presentation, we all can answer this question together. Now let's move forward with all the problems. So I have a list of a lot of problems that we as Web3 degens face regularly. Some of them, well, you might as a developer will also face. Like if your users go off app to sign transactions, like they have to go between apps and wallets again and again to sign a transaction. They have to sign multiple transactions, for example, a multi-chain swap. Users often want a risk-free embedded experiences across new dApps. User does not have enough liquidity or gas on the desired chain. Like these all questions are things that you as a developer needs to figure out before you can build a dApp. What if the user goes offline during the interaction? What if the users are fragmented across multiple ecosystems, right? You as a developer has to think about this, and you also want to offer single one-click experiences. So how do you do all of those and still keep on track, right? So, OK, so this meme often reminds me of all these problems in Web3. There's fire everywhere, but we often say it's fine. Well, it should not be. Yeah, so how does Okto solve it? At Okto, we have infrastructure of DWNs, ULL, and DTN. It's a general intent resolver. So using DWN, we offer secure, friendly, and interoperable wallets along with session delegation. ULL helps us offer you gas abstraction and cross-chain liquidity. And DTNs is a general intent resolver which helps you do general intents on chains, protocols, and multiple ecosystems at the same time. Now, what is a DTN? DTN, or which is short for Decentralized Wallet Network, is a MPC cluster which is on AWS and has a dollar-based policy engine. ULL, or Unified Liquidity Layer, is a 7683 compatible solver network, and DTN, Decentralized Transaction Network, is again a synchronous generalized intent solver, which can be extended using blocks, which is one of its superpowers. Now, let's get to the good part. So we are all hackers here today trying to build something cool. So what can you build on Okto SDK right now? So at the hackathon, we are offering a lot of different features, including, but not limited to, social login using interop embedded wallets, session key delegation, chain abstraction ecosystems such as EVM, Hyper EVM, Aptos, and Solana. We do offer guest sponsorships, generalized intents such as token transfer, NV transfer, and raw transaction. And most importantly, we offer it in a very great developer experiences. So we have multiple SDKs across platforms. We have developer dashboard and adapters for WAGMI and ELISA. So I think that's all the slides have. So maybe we can move on to the hands-on session. So let me just quickly set this up. So yep, here we go. So how do you get started on Okto? So there's two things you can do. First, let's go to the Okto dashboard. So the dashboard is dashboard.okto.tech. You can just go there. You can enter your email ID. I'm just going to quickly enter my email ID. I'm going to log in. And it's going to send you an OTP on your email. So I'm just quickly going to put it in. Just a second. So yeah, I'm on the dashboard. So I think I have already logged onto this dashboard, but when you'll come back, you'll basically what you'll do is you'll go to the APIs key section, you'll generate API keys. So here you see two different options. One is the client SWA and the client private key. The client SDWA is your uh, recognition for the chain, that Okto chain, and client private key is how we help you access the Okto chain. So I have these values already with me, but you can just create a new one and you can save that with you. Now, since Okto is a multi-chain architecture, you obviously need some chains, right? So let's go to the chains and token section, and you can enable a lot of chains. So right now I have Polygon enabled, but let's go enable a few more chains. So let's say I enable base, a few testnets like base testnet, and let's say I enable Polygon testnet as well. So I can go ahead, enable those chains. These chains will be enabled, and I can also enable some tokens. So let's say I enable Matic and USDC on Polygon Amoy, and on base, I go ahead and enable some USDC. Now, we support nearly every token out there. So if you don't see a custom token that you want to use in the dashboard, you can just shoot up a quick DM on our Discord channel, or we have a booth right back. So you can just come and we'll help you out. Oh, by the way, since this is an Okto testnet, you might also need some faucet tokens. So Okto tokens help the Okto chain operate and help you, the dApps perform their interactions on the chain. So we have a quick, easy to use faucet right in the dashboard. Just come here, click on request credits, and the tokens will be deposited into your client. So it's that simple. I'll just going to cross it for now because I already have some tokens. By the way, we also have guest sponsorship. So if your application requires you to sponsor your user's transaction on some destination chain, let's say Polygon, you can obviously come here and simply activate it. It uses standard ERC4337 sponsorship. OK, let's go ahead. So now we have the API keys and all set up, but we still need a project, right? So let's go to the docs. So the docs is on our website, docs.okto.tech. So I'll go there. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to be relying on React, but you are free to choose from Next.js, TypeScript, React Native, and a lot of them. So let's choose React Quick Start. If you already have a React application set up, you can follow our steps to implement Okto in it. But since I do not, I'll just use the Quick Start template. So you can click on Run Template, and it will give you a couple of steps using which you can clone a template repository, you can install the packages, and copy the environment files, right? So now that all that's done, let me just quickly copy this. I can, let's say, open my terminal, and I can clone it. Remind me later. OK, where's my terminal? Here it is. So I can clone it, and I can install it. But for the sake of time, I have already done that in the behind the scenes. So here you go. So this is the repository. Don't focus on the red colors. We are quickly going to make them go away. So it's the same repository that we cloned. The only thing that I did is I came to the env file, and I pasted all the values. Right, so what are these values? So there are a couple of them. So the first one is the environment variable, which will be sandbox. Then the next two are the Okto keys, which we just got from the dashboard. And then other next two are for the Google OAuth. So Okto offers you something called the social login. So you can offer login via Google to your applications. Now to achieve that, you have to use Google login, and Google Client Secret is a simple client key that you can get from GCP portal, and it helps you get those tokens. Now let's move on to some code, right? So in your React application, you must have a root file where you define providers, strict mode, browser routers, everything. So in the same file, you can define Okto provider as well. So you can simply import the Okto provider from the Okto SDK, and it will ask you for a config. The config is nothing but all the three values that we just saw. And at the same time, you can also give it a Google Auth provider from SDK as well. So by doing that, your whole application will have access to all the niceties that we have to offer in Okto. So that's great. Now let's see how your user can actually log in, right? That user needs to log in, otherwise how he's going to use the app. So let's go and see the login page. Now, in the login page, I have some code written here already, but we will mainly focus on the Google login part. Now, how to do a Google login? Well, it's not that complicated. The Google SDK provides you a single to use React component. You just import it using from the SDK, and you just add it to your HTML, right? Just like this. It gives you a callback function, which I have defined right here. Now we'll come to this callback function later, but how to use Okto here. So first of all, what you're going to do is you're going to uh, import the Okto client using the Okto hook. Since we have already used the provider earlier, it's as simple as writing use Okto and it will give you the Okto client, right? And while we are at it, let's create a handle authenticate function which takes an ID token. Now what is an ID token? We'll get it to a little bit later, but for now what you can do is simply call Okto client login using OAuth and provide that ID token and you're good to go. The ID token, well, as we were just discussing, comes from the handle Google login function. As you can see, it will return you something called a credential, which is also another name for an ID token. Just pass it to Okto and the user will be logged in. That's good to go. Now let's see it in action. So I'm just going to run a quick command called npm run and we'll just see this. So it's going to run on localhost 5173. I have that just right here. Oh, let me just close this. Right, so here's the login screen. Now as you can see, we already have a login using Google button. If I just click on it, boom, I get a Google login pop-up. I select the email ID that I want to use and I am logged in. Now it looks like the Wi-Fi is a little slow, but that's okay. We can get with it. So this is a sample screen that we have created to show you all the capabilities of Okto. So here you can see all the Explorer functions such as user accounts, user portfolio, the chains that the user can interact on your Dapp. For example, right now since we enable a lot of chains, if I click on it, again, the Wi-Fi seems to be a little slow. Yeah, here we go. So we have the base chain, base testnet, Polygon, and everything. But the cool thing about Okto SDK is while all these features are available to you, your user doesn't necessarily need to know this. It's all abstracted for me. Only thing the user needs to know is the user SWA, which is right here, right? So that's all about the Explorer functions, but what about actions? Actions are something that we call as intents in Okto SDK. So intents are the actions that your user wants to do. So for example, if your user wants to do a token transfer, an NFT transfer, or something custom, so we offer an intent for each of them. Now, instead of showing you it through UI, why don't we walk through the code? So I'm just going to go back. Now I have created another page called demo token transfer. And I have written some skeleton UI code here, but we'll go through the logic as we are here. Right? The first task is we need to import the Okto client. So as we just saw earlier, you just write const. OK, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it like this. Const Okto client and use. OK. Use Okto, and the Okto client will be imported. So the Okto client is there. Now you want to make a transaction. How do you do that? You come. Now I have a function which handles the transaction, which you can call. So I'll just create token transfer function. So I'll just import token transfer. I'll pass the Okto client that I just imported. And I'll pass some parameters. Now what are these parameters? These are some basic intent specifiers that you have to give. So for example, it is asking you the token that you want to give. So for now, I'm going to leave this as empty. I'll explain what that means. And the next one is the recipient address. Now, for the demo, I already have another wallet that I created earlier. So I'm just going to note down the user SW of that wallet, and I'm going to paste it in. Right? Then we need amount as well. So I'm just going to put some arbitrary big number. Let's say this, maybe at one more zero. I'm not sure what that number means, like how much that is, but we'll see. Now, again, we also need something called a CAIP2 ID. Now, this might be a term that not a lot of you might be familiar with. So what CAIP2 ID is, it's a chain-agnostic blockchain identifier. So instead of calling it Polygon or something, we have a construct to define them. Now you can learn more about them on the docs, but for now I'm just going to put in the chain ID of Polygon. So it's going to be EIP155:137. And by the way, you can also see them all here in the UI as well. So this is all done. And for the token that we left out empty, right? So here what you can do is you can actually put the address of the token contract and it will automatically recognize it. But since native tokens don't have addresses, I left it at empty. That means it's a native token. Now, the token transfer intent is created, and once it's executed, it will return us the intent ID. So I'll quickly catch that intent ID, and we can also check the status. So let me do that real quick. Now I have an intent ID that the transaction is successful, but how do I know that? I also need to check the status of it. So what we can do is I can create another function which will give me the status of it. It's called get order details. So again, similarly, we'll just import that function and pass the ID. Now what I did here is I got the order details and I set it in a use state hook so that I can use it later. And by the way, I also need to invoke this function, right? So I'm just going to invoke this just like this, and the function is invoked. And in the handle transfer function, as soon as I click the button, this should work, right? So let me just do that real quick. If I go back to the UI and I go to the custom route that just we defined, demo token transfer, as you can see, we have the UI here. Now, if I click on token transfer, it will, in the background, create the transfer payload. It will get it signed by the DWN, and it will put it on chain. And once that's done, it will also fetch the status using the use status hook. Now, we see the order status, and we see that it's pending right now. I guess I should fetch it again, but the intent is there. Now, if I want to check if the intent is successful, obviously I can refetch the API, but for the sake of this demo, I'm just to copy this intent ID. I'm gonna go back, and in the get order history, I can check that the intent should be successful in a bit. Yeah, it's still in progress. Let's give it a couple of seconds. Hopefully it'll be there. It often, yeah, so it's done. See, it's successful. It's successful on the chain, and you also get the transaction hash of the downstream chain. So if I copy it and go on Polygon Scan, I can see that it's successful. Let me do that real quick. polygonscan.com. I can just paste it here. And okay, I'm not sure what just happened, but yeah, if you see it a couple seconds later, it might be there. Maybe the Polygon Explorer is not working right. Oh yeah, it's here. So the transition is successful and you are good to go. So that's all about Okto SDK. But what about all the developers who are already familiar with some of the other tools? Let's say you are a Web3 developer who's familiar with WAGMI. You already wrote a lot of code using WAGMI, and want to offer social login to your users. How do you do that? So for that, we also have a WAGMI adapter that we have created. So you can simply go to the our documentation, and you can go to, let me just find it real quick, in the React part, integrating with WAGMI. So it's a very easy to use setup. You just install the WAGMI adapter in your existing code. You write 3 lines, which is basically a connector called Okto. You pass the same values that you passed earlier in our SDK, and you're good to go. You'll get a new button, new connector called Okto. User can click on it. They'll be able to do Google login and nothing else. That's all. So yeah, that's all on the hands-on coding section. I think we already covered the WAGMI adapter. At the start of this session, I asked you all a question, like why wouldn't you use a chain abstracted embedded wallets? I hope I was able to answer that. And what I feel the answer is, well, why wouldn't you? So that's all. Thank you, everyone. By the way, our testnet is already live, and the mainnet is going to be live in a couple of months. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop by our booth, and we'll be happy to answer. Happy building.